Molweni manene na manene kazi. Ngolwe sihlanu, ngomgqibelo ekuseni ngexesha lethu, uSive Nontshinga uza kulwa no Adrian Curiel azame ukubuyisela inshinga yake paya Mexico. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Friday night, Saturday morning, early on the zone in an hour time, Sive Nontshinga is going to try and regain his IBF Junior Flyweight World title when he fights Adrian Curiel, the man who gave him his first defeat in a rematch in Mexico. If that's something you're interested in, stick around. End of last year, Sivenathi Nontshinga was making the second defense of his IBF world title against an opponent that looked to be your typical voluntary title defense. Adrian Curiel went in with a 23-4-1 record. He's never been stopped, but every time he stepped up, he came just short. And he only had 4 knockouts to his credit, so he looked like a relatively safe option. I looked at his fights before that fight, and I thought he was quite sturdy, he was quite strong, and he would give Sivenathi Nontshinga a competitive fight, but I didn't expect him to win, and neither did anybody else in the boxing world. Even more so if I didn't expect him to win by knockout, so it was a real shocker, one of the big upsets of 2023. After a round that was sort of even in the first round, a good fast-paced round, I think maybe Nontshinga just edged that round. In the second round, Nontshinga threw a jab, Curiel slipped to the inside of that jab and came over with a right, and he hit Nontshinga on the side of it, on the temple, and he went down like a sack of potatoes, and referee Sparkle Lee didn't bother completing the count. And that was that. Nontshinga was shockingly an ex-champion. Well, he's going straight back from the fire into the frying pan, or from the frying pan into the fire, and he opted for an immediate rematch, and this time it is happening in Mexico, whereas I would say Monaco more or less favoured Nontshinga. He's going straight to Mexico, to the Lions Den, trying to take back what is his. Now in boxing, if a fighter gets knocked out, statistically in the rematch they get knocked out quicker. Well, that will mean that we won't have much of a fight on Friday night, Saturday morning, our time on the zone, because that means Nontshinga would be going out in the first round. But also there's been people who have been knocked out and came back to avenge it in spectacular style. One of them that comes to mind is former heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis. He's top of my mind because I happened to meet the guy a while back. But it can be done, but it's a difficult ask to do it. Now the question is, can Nontshinga show that he's indeed the special one and beat Curiel? Because if he doesn't beat Adrian Curiel, it's hard to see where he goes from here. Then he's going to be doing local stuff, and it's going to be a hard slog back to a world title, to a major world title at least. So what went wrong last time? That is the first question. If I have to speculate, and it's always speculation, this camp can tell you more, but before a fight it's also very secretive. If I look at Nontshinga, and he's always a sort of a relaxed kind of guy, confident kind of guy. He's not one of these very tense guys that wants to kill a guy to weigh in. But still, having said that, in Monte Carlo, if I looked at the interviews, the clips beforehand of him in the dressing room, he was supposed to win. He came out of that war in Mexico against Hector Flores where he won the title. Then he had a very good first title defense against the mandatory contender Reggie Suganov. Was a tough fight, but he won that. So I think his confidence was riding high, and inevitably he regarded Curiel as an easier touch, and I think he just underestimated Adrian Curiel. And then there are also little flaws that's always been there with Nontshinga. If you want to fight with your hands down, you want to drop your hands and fight that loose American style, you've got to make sure that you're in a position where you can at least see everything coming, or that you're completely out of range. Because even Muhammad Ali, when the opponent was close, he picked up his hands, or at least tied up. So I think what happened there was a little bit perhaps of overconfidence set in, because when Curiel hit him with that knockout punch. And Nontshinga was throwing a jab. I won't say it was a lazy jab, he was perhaps just a tad slower in getting that hand back. And Curiel timed this moment perfectly, hit him on the temple, and it worked, and he went down. If we look at a few fights back before he won the world title against Christian in an eliminator, before he went for a world title against Christian Araneta there in Berga, I was ringside for that one. He was winning that one well enough, but he got knocked down in the last few seconds of a fight by Araneta with a similar sort of shot, even though Araneta was a southpaw and he came with a left hand, also hit him on the head, more or less in this region, and he went down. Now, you got to ask the question also, did those wars that Nontshinga had against, especially Hector Flores Calisto, Araneta fight was a taxing fight, the Suganov was a taxing fight, although he won clearly enough in my book. Did that do some damage? Is his punch resistance perhaps not what it should be, or is that perhaps a sweet spot? If you punch him here, he goes. That can happen with a fighter. So that is a question mark here. Now, I think clearly the stronger guy is Curiel. I've seen in all his other fights, if you can move him back, then he doesn't fight so well. But I don't think Sivenathi Nontshinga is physically strong enough to move him back. You could see there in the first round, Curiel was constantly moving Nontshinga back, although Nontshinga was quicker. He did a nice little turnaround with Curiel, and he's the quicker guy. He's got the quicker hands. He perhaps throws a crisper punches, but Curiel is physically stronger. He's got the heavier hands, and he hit Curiel quite a couple of times, short as the fight was, and Curiel just soaked it up, shrugged it off, and kept walking through it. So I don't think Sivenathi Nontshinga can really hurt Adrian Curiel and back him up. I don't think that option is there unless he can break him down and make him fade late. But I don't see that. I don't see how Sivenathi Nontshinga can do that. So that leaves us with a second option. He's got to do like what he did against Hector Flores and win the fight on points. Now, I see Dion Duarte, South African judge and referee, is on his way. I assume he'll be the judge. I couldn't find who the judges are. So I'm assuming Nontshinga will get a fair shake in Mexico, like he got a fair shake in that very close fight against Hector Flores. Now, the thing with Nontshinga is, Curiel, I don't think there's too many more ways he can fight. He's just going to do exactly the same, come forward, hit the body, take whatever Nontshinga throws, and he's going to be looking for those temple shots, the right hand there, or Curiel likes to switch hit, and then he comes with the left hand. So Nontshinga is going to have to do something here, and he's going to have to watch the second hand, the power hand. By that I mean, if Curiel is in an orthodox stand, the right hand that comes here. If Curiel changes later in the fight, and he's in the southpaw stance, the straight left that's going to come. So he's going to have to move away from that, circle away from that second hand, that power hand, the one that sits behind the jab. That is number one. So he's going to have to change direction. You know, when Curiel caught him with a right hand after throwing the jab, Nontshinga was going back in a line, although it must be said Curiel corralled him against the ropes. So he didn't really have a other escape route there where he could go. But I think Sivenathi Nontshinga's got to get his distance right, because if he's at that distance from Curiel, he's got to either be all the way out, all the way in, and especially when you're in that danger zone, he's got to keep his hands up, because he has been caught when he thinks he's out of range, but the hands are down and he gets caught. That happened against Araneta briefly, and that's not quite what happened against Curiel. It was over the jab. But he's going to have to tighten up the defense. The gloves has to tighten up. If he comes out, he's got to step around, keep stepping around Curiel. And if he's forced to move backward, drop his level. That is not there for that overhand right as it comes over left, for that matter, if Curiel changes. If he goes back, he's got to drop his level when he's on the out until he's out of range. And for the rest, if he can maintain a high work rate, if he can stay out of trouble, and he can land the clearer punches, he could work his way to a decision and regain his title. I think he's a more talented fighter to me. I think he's definitely overall a better talent. I think Adrian Curiel, though, is much stronger. He's got a better chin. Something that I didn't notice before we first encountered, Curiel was used to fighting a division higher at flyweight. And just before their fight, you know, he dipped his toes in the junior flyweights, and I think he's very strong at that weight. That can go two ways. It also can mean that he's killing himself to make the weight. I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't have any idea how he is at the weight, but he's definitely very strong at the weight. So I think there's one way for Sivenathi Nontshinga to win this fight. He's going to have a high work rate. He's going to have to keep it inside or get all the way out, and he's going to have to circle away from the power and the second hand, depending on what stance Curiel is in. But what he mustn't do is move back with the hands sort of down here. He must have the hands up tight, and he must drop his level as he steps out, and then he can come up again once he's out of a danger zone. Lots of angles. Now, has he been softened up by all these tough fights? That is the question. Has he been softened up? Is he going to succumb again? The smart money will be on Curiel. If a boxer knocks out his opponent, chances are he's going to do it again in the rematch. I think Nontshinga has got a good team behind him, and trainer manager Colin Nathan, as well as his dad Tembani Golpeni. I think they'll have a strategy there, right? Can Nontshinga learn and apply from this? He's only 12-1, that's 13 fights. It's not a lot for having been a world champion already. He's been moved fast. It all depends, can he learn from this experience? Remember, Curiel, as I've said in my previous analysis of the initial encounter, he has shown improvement. So he was able to improve, and it paid off. Now, can Nontshinga show more improvement? He's got to correct those mistakes that I mentioned, and he's got to have the right strategy. And if he is able to do that, he's got the right team to make him do that. And the fact that he's straight back into the rematch when he didn't have to tells me he's confident of his chances, and he thinks that he knows what went wrong the first time and is out to prove a thing. It's a very ballsy move, and that's something I respect. So I'm going to stick my head out here, and I think they're going to tighten up everything. I think they're going to have the right strategy, and I think this time around Nontshinga is going to win this fight. He's going to win on points, I think. I think it's going to be a close points decision. I think it's going to be a split decision, probably being in Mexico. It's going to be similar to his fight against Hector Flores, but I think he's just a slight better talent than Adrian Curiel, and I think perhaps Adrian Curiel is not going to find lightning twice in a row. But I won't be surprised if Curiel hits him again with those temple shots. Nontshinga cannot stand up to it, and he gets stopped. It wouldn't surprise me. That would probably be the smart guess. But I've got a feeling that Team Nontshinga have got something up their sleeve, that they can make the adjustments, and that they're going to surprise people, and that they're going to regain this title, albeit I think it's a hard task, and they're going to have to run through deep water. So I'm riding with Nontshinga on this one. Guys, please, if you watch this far, remember to punch that like button, and also tell me what you think. Can you think of any other fighters who've been knocked out besides Lennox Lewis who avenged it in spectacular fashion? And who do you have winning this fight? Are you going with Curiel? Are you going with Nontshinga? How do you think they win, and why do you think they do it? Leave a comment down below. And guys, please remember to subscribe. And until I see you again, remember to keep those hands up.